Welcome back to another episode of Peak Performers Podcast. I'm your host, Thor Conklin. There's a great book that was written many, many years ago, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Well, many of you are not thinking, and that's why you're not growing rich. People don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. You know, I'm all about execution, I'm all about doing things, but before you get to that stage, you've got to first think and you've got to plan. And that brings us to today's topic, annual planning. Stay tuned.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performers Podcast
with your host, Thor Conklin.
Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy. People ask me all the time, Thor, how have you been able to achieve what you've been able to achieve? And the people that you work with, how can they achieve the results, or how did they achieve the results that they did? What's the secret recipe, right? They all want to know. Well, what I'm going to walk you through today is the process that I actually walk through with my clients. Now, my clients pay our firm anywhere from $2,500 a month all the way up to over $250,000 a year. Wish it was $250,000 a year. It's only $250,000 a year. And I'm going to give this to you for free. And I know that many of you, since it's free, aren't going to act on it. But I'm telling you, if you want to know the secret of what separates those that accomplish what they want and those that don't, is in this system I'm going to teach you. So go through and listen to this once, and then you're going to have to go back and listen to it again with paper and pencil. You're going to have to write this stuff down. So there's a lot of information that's going to be coming your way. For right now, you can just listen to it and then go back and listen to it again. All right. Every year for the last 15 years, I've been spending anywhere from 3 to 4 days going away at the end of the year or the beginning of the year and planning out my next 12 months. I do this down at the shore. For those not from Jersey, I go down to the beach or I go up to the mountains. I've got to go somewhere where I'm in nature and I can just disconnect to everything else going on around me. Now, what's interesting is 80% of you just heard that and said, I don't have 3 days. I don't have 4 days. What? Fine, make it 2 days or 3 days. Even then, many of you are going to say, I'm too busy, I can't do it. So all of a sudden, we've already eliminated 80% of the people listening. The next, you've got to schedule it. Find the time on your calendar and schedule it. Some of you will do that. You'll actually get it scheduled, but then you'll cancel it and you won't do it. Again, 80% of you gone. Then you actually have to go and do the planning. 80% won't do that. Then you actually have to execute on the plan that you come up with. Again, 80% won't execute on. So if you see right away, the way this math works is every step along the way, people are weeded out. That's why there's so few that are getting the results that they want. They're actually following through. They decide what they want. Look, let's go back to the ultimate success map, right? Very simple. Figure out what you want, come up with an effective and efficient plan, make a decision, commit to it, check your beliefs, and start acting. But all along the way, people fail to continue going on. They stop. Look, there's no magic formula here. What it is plan out your year and start executing on it. So we'll go into a little bit more detail here. Hopefully, I've got the 20% of the 20% of the 20% of the 20% that are still left. So he said, okay, Thor, look, I'm going to commit to this. I'm actually going to do it. I've carved out the time. What do I do next? You want to start with looking back on the past year. What's worked? What hasn't worked? What were the lessons? What did you learn? Hopefully you won't have to repeat those lessons again. And what are you grateful for? Because some of the times, the things that we thought were really, really horrible days or didn't go exactly the way we wanted them to go actually turned out great. I remember a buddy came to me last year and said, oh, life has ended. I lost my job. I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, look, you're really talented. I said, why don't you go out and just start doing some subcontract work? Set up your own company. Become a contractor, which he actually did and ended up making gobs of money. So what you think is your worst day just might be your best day. Next, you got to figure out what that vision for your life is. What do you want your life to ultimately look like? Who do you want to surround yourself with? Where do you want to be living? What do you want life to look like? Get really clear on that. Lack of clarity leads to so much heartache and lack of achievement. You need absolute clarity, and through this process, you'll get it. After you figure out what your vision is, you want to figure out all those areas of life that support that vision. I call them AOLs. So you're going to have your health one, you're going to have your family one, you're going to have your fitness one, finance, spiritual. It doesn't matter, but come up with all the different categories that support your overall vision. Now, for each of these categories, what I want you to do is I want you to list out what you would like to accomplish, the goals and the outcomes that you want in 2018 or whatever year you're listening to this podcast. I don't care how many goals you come up with in each of these categories, each of these AOLs. But after you do that for each one, and by the way, let me just talk a little bit about the family or relationship. I find it really important and helpful if you're able to separate out boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, kids, every person that's really, really important to you and is in that inner circle should have its own category. You don't want to treat both the kids the same. You certainly don't want to treat your spouse like your kids. Each one should have their own category, own area of life, AOL. Okay, so now you've got all the categories, all the areas of life. I want you to pick out the top one, just one. If you can only have one out of each of those categories, what would it be for health? What would it be for finance? What would it be for family? What would it be for the individual relationships? Once you have a top in each one of those categories, I then want you to figure out what are your top 1 to 3. If you only had 1 to 3 to choose from, that's all it's like a genie, right? You were given 1 to 3 wishes, okay? What's number 1, what's number 2, and what's number 3? I know this is hard because what we want everything, right? But let me be very clear about something. And there's so much misinformation about this. You can have anything that you want. You just can't have everything. And there's people who run around going, you can have everything. You can't, okay? If you want a great business, okay, you've got to make sacrifices in other areas. If you want a great body, you have to make sacrifices in other areas. You can't have everything. It's a bunch of BS. You can have anything, but you've got to choose. Now, when you choose these top 3, I want to make sure that they're not in conflict with each other. All right, make sure that they're complementary. And as you're working towards one, it's not going to take you away from the other one. You want these to be in alignment. You want the flow and the energy going together in all two. Well, again, if you have one, it doesn't matter. But if you have 2 or more, 2 or 3, you want to make sure they're not in conflict. Now, we have our 1 to 3 top goals for the year. Next, we've got to put together milestones. Well, what's a milestone? A milestone is a marker that's getting us from point A to point Z, but it's just one step. So it would be the B would be a mile marker, right? We're at A, we've got to get to B. We're trying to get to Z, but right now all we can see is B, and that's all I want you to focus on is B. When you're at B, the only thing you want to focus on is C. Each of these mile markers, or milestones as I call them, are months. So if you're doing this at the end of the year, you're listening to this as it's being posted the same day, we're coming up at the end of the year. So January should be your first milestone. You know where you want to get to at the end of the year, next year. Now it's a question of you got to work backwards. Well, if we start it now and we came up with a plan for January, then a plan for February, we're not working backwards yet. We've got to start with December 31st. That's our year-end goal. That's what we want to be at that point. What is going to be your goal or your mile marker as of November 30th? Let's use a real-life example. Let's say that your goal is to get to $10,000 of income each and every month. And right now, it's a brand new business. You don't have any income. Okay. So on 12/31, we want to get to the point where we're making $10,000 a month. So where do we need to be in November in order to get to $10,000 in December? Well, the number might be 9,000, it might be 8,000, it might be 7,500. It doesn't matter. But when you work it all the ways backwards from December, when you get to June, it might be 5,000 a month. It might be 4,000. It doesn't matter. You come up with what you think is realistic to get to your ultimate goal, your ultimate outcome in the following year. Once we have the milestones, now what we want to look at January's milestone. It might be, okay, let's get $1,000 a month in income in January. Great. What actions do we need to take in January to get to $1,000? You're going to list all those out. You might have 20 of them. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that you list everything out and you spend time thinking about it, asking great questions. A big part of this process is asking yourself questions. If I need to get to $1,000 of income in January, what do I need to do today in order to drive that result? Once you have all those things listed out, all those actions, you then want to figure out what are your 3 to 4 actions that you absolutely have to take. And there might only be one action. You have to do it multiple times, right? But it might just be one action. Figure out what your top actions are in that month to drive that process. And do this for each one of your goals. When you're done with this exercise, not only do you have the milestones, but you now have actions that you have to take in the month of January. Now, here's the thing. When you start doing these actions, do not pay attention to your overall goal, your end result, the 2018 or next year's goal. You only want to pay attention to what is the next step, what's the next milestone, what's the next marker. Because if you keep hitting the markers, what are you going to do? You're going to hit your overall goal. When I did this exercise, about 3 weeks ago, I ended up with a very interesting map of where I was going, the milestones to get there, but also I started to see a theme emerge. Now, this is my, 13th or 14th year in doing this, so I'm getting better at it and better at it. It becomes quicker for me. But I still spent 3.5 days literally doing this. I do not rush this process. It's extremely, extremely valuable. But for me, it turned out that the theme for the year is teamwork. And I've got 3 things that I'm focused on: financial, fitness, and fun. That's it. 3 things. And I have a new belief system. If it's to be, it's up to we. Because in the past, if I'm, like any of you guys, I had a belief that if it had to happen, if it was going to happen, if I wanted it done the way I wanted it to happen, I had to do it. It's a very limiting belief. So if it was truly going to be, it's up to we. If it's going to be, what did I need to do? I had to make sure that we was in place. That included growing our team, taking 2 part-time people and actually making them full-time, and then actually bringing on another person part-time. So growing the team, if we really going to make this a we, I had to have the resources, right? Makes sense. I wrote out the plan. It's on the wall. Everyone on the team knows where I'm going, what we're doing, what I'm doing, and what we're doing as a team, as a company. There's a scoreboard. We're measuring it. We're tracking it. We're celebrating when we hit the wins. On my fitness goal, I told the world, next year I'm going to run an Ironman. I don't really swim. I can't run, or don't run, I should say. And I've committed to running a 140-mile race in under 17 hours. Swimming, biking, and running. It's crazy. I have no idea how I'm going to do it, but I set it out as a goal. And actually, last Sunday, I actually hired a triathlon coach, right? Because if I'm going to run a triathlon, what do I need? I need an expert to tell me how to do it. As you're doing this, make sure that you have an accountability manager. You've heard me talk about this before, not an accountability partner, an accountability manager. Someone you pay to hold you accountable every single week for the results. Because if you're not driving these results and taking the actions every single week, you're never going to hit your milestones. If you don't hit your milestones, you're not going to hit your quarterly goals. If you don't hit your quarterly goals, there's no way you're going to hit your annual goals. Oh, and by the way, you can include that as well, is I also track on a quarterly basis as well. It's not necessary, but you can also put in quarterly milestones where your monthly milestones are getting to your quarterly milestones. So what's next? What's next is commit to doing this. Schedule the time, put it on your calendar, go and do it and spend the time. The results, I promise you, will be immense. You need absolute clarity in order to execute on your goals. You've got to do this process. I see so often clients going after multiple goals, 4, 5, 10, multiple things, and they're not making progress on anything, and that's why they're struggling. That's why they're not making the profits that they need to. Do not fall into that trap. You've got to get clear on the 1 to 3 things that you want, and that's it. I wish you an amazing year next year, and one of the things that I'll be doing on this podcast is I'm going to be checking in on you, and we're going to be talking about monthly and quarterly what's going on with your milestones. Where are you with regards to your plan? Because you need to be tracking, measuring, adjusting, changing. As you set out on this, you're going to find your plan, what you thought was going to be a great way to get to your goals and your objectives, isn't going to work. You've got to constantly making adjustments. You're going to find out more things from your clients. Your clients don't fit into just one little box. You're going to find some want this, some want that. You're going to have to make adjustments. If you run into any issues with this and you need some guidance, just drop me an email at thor@thorconklin.com. And as always, I'd love to hear your comments and your struggles and your successes. Keep me posted, and much success in the coming year. Thank you so much for listening today. I really do appreciate your time, and I hope you found today's show valuable. If you would like to receive these shows automatically to your phone or to your computer, simply go to iTunes and subscribe. After listening to several of the shows, if you're so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating, as this helps us reach additional people and spread the message. If you're truly committed to taking your life to the next level and doing whatever it takes to become a peak performer, but something's holding you back, something is blocking your way, and you just can't seem to figure out what it is, send me an email to info@thorconklin.com, and I'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you. We'll schedule a 15-minute discovery call. No obligation, no cost. I absolutely love to hear from the listeners, and if there's something I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do that. Also, if you found something of great interest in today's show and you want to share that with your friends and family, simply go to my Facebook page, Thor Conklin. Click on the episode, hit the share button, and share it on your page. You can follow me at Twitter at Thor Conklin. The website is thorconklin.com. We're constantly adding new free resources, discussing additional tricks, tips, tools, and strategies on how to be a peak performer. Remember, I try to keep these episodes short so you can listen to them during dot time, doing other things, commuting, driving, walking, working out. Decide to be a peak performer in all that you do. And until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day.